Hi, I'm Charlotte. I'm from Northern Virginia. So going back to what you were saying about the foundation of family, number one, I have a question. Do you think that the media, such as like TV shows and like movies, portray particularly men, in my opinion, like fatherless as like weaker, like not goofy off and stuff like that? And number two, I've noticed, because I want to go into script writing hopefully one day, and I've noticed like 70s and 80s and a little bit of 90s had like strong family values, a lot of good shows, and like just family-oriented shows. And do you think we were able to bring that back maybe without getting too much criticism maybe?
Yeah, so I would say that if you look at the media and its influence on the culture, it's been profound. I mean, there were codes called the Hays Code prior to the late 1960s there were codes on how you made movies and how you did TV shows. If you go back and look at some of the old black and white TV shows, anybody ever see the Dick Van Dyke Show? Dick Van Dyke Show, anybody see that? Sure, okay. But you notice they slept in separate beds. They had twin beds in their bedroom. And they were never on the bed together. If they were on the bed together, there was a 1 foot on the ground rule. Literally a rule and a code that if a man and woman were in bed together, they had to have 1 foot on the ground. One of them had to have 1 foot on the ground. We had codes in place to protect decency and morality. And we abandoned those in the 1960s. We got rid of the Hays Code and went with the movie rating system, which basically said you can do whatever you want, just tell us. And they were supposed to be guides, but as you know, they're pretty meaningless today. And that liberalization in the media has fundamentally changed the message to young people. You mentioned the roles of fathers. That's one. I mean, you go back and you look at fathers in the 1950s and 60s in particular. They were the upstanding people. They were the smart guy. You know, there was a show called Father Knows Best. Can you imagine? Can you imagine a show today called Father Knows Best? Are you kidding me? What father? And he doesn't know anything. I mean, you know, he's Al Bundy. He's you know, Homer Simpson. I mean, that's the male father role today in the media. And of course, does that have an impact? Well, you look at it. What's happened to fathers in America over the last 50, 60 years? One other area, I mentioned this because it's actually fairly dramatic, and that is public acceptance of same-sex relationships. The sexual revolution occurred in the 1960s. A lot of changes were occurring in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s into the 90s, but attitudes on that issue did not change. It was the only thing in the sexual revolution that, according to those who were in favor of this traumatic change in gender and understanding sexuality, that didn't make any progress. Until what? Anybody know? Will and Grace. Will and Grace. The first publicly gay person on TV on a regular show. After Will and Grace, there were several other shows after that, and that's when attitudes started changing. When Hollywood said it was okay. And when Hollywood said this is normal, this is right, this is good. And you saw it on your TV, and you welcomed people into your home. At the time, in the 90s, you may not have known publicly many gay people, but at least now you could understand who they are. That has its good sides, and in my opinion, it has some bad sides. But it tells you the power of the messages that are delivered in the media. And the fact of the matter is, you folks are addicted. Right? You're all addicted. I mean, the power, I mean, it's the amazing thing is the power this thing has over you. I mean, it's frightening. Anybody ever read the book 1984? The Screens, right? The Screens of 1984, here they are, folks. These are the screens of 1984. This is where the government, you give up your privacy every day to get a better deal on some consumer good. You give up your information every day. You complain about privacy and you give it up. On all your apps, on your Venmo, and everything else, you give it up. You want to worry about the government controlling everything? Worry about this. Worry about this. Next.